Hi everyone, Lydia here. Thank you so much for tuning in this week for another one of my videos. Today we are dealing with my design for my new sketchbook. So in the past I used Arteza. This is a master's touch. It's an 8.25 by 8.25 inches, very similar to the Arteza. The paper is just a little different. It's more for like markers and that media rather than watercolor, but both books lay flat. It's really nice. So the design idea that I had is I had these little letters from Hobby Lobby and I wanted to do my initials, which are LEM. And I had this idea, making it super nice and neat, and I was going to super glue them so that they would be very sturdy. Now, the thing about super glue is that it is extremely finicky, and I mean very finicky. Once I had my letters all lined up how I liked them, I started putting the glue to the base or the back sides of the letters and lining them back up. But the problem was certain edges or parts of the glue or of the letters would be lifting up, and I didn't want that to happen because I take my sketchbook with me everywhere. So if it's put in a bag, I didn't want the letters to tear off because they'd get caught. So I eventually, after trying a couple different ways, I tried to use the glue and put it just on the edge, but that put glue on top of the letter, and so then I had the thought process of just completely putting super glue all over the letters. And the thought process was, this is clear super glue that's supposed to dry clear, so I can put it all over the letters, and that way I can get it on the bottom as well, but it will also just kind of create a seal over top. Well, that process was a great idea initially. It just did not execute properly, and what ended up happening was that the letters looked bubbled and they were still lifting in areas, and it just was not gonna work. So I really didn't like the finish that the super glue had left, so I tried to use a gold marker and try to cover over that, and it looked horrible. And so I decided to completely scratch that whole idea, and as you can see here, I tried to tear off the letters and they partially came off, and I was so defeated and so frustrated. Here's my new sketchbook and it's not working well. And so I had the idea, well, what if I take my watercolor paper and I create a cover to go over those torn off letters? And the image that I really wanted to kind of copy is an image of oranges that I had painted with a friend recently. And I show that picture there, and I will leave it up on the screen as I work on this process. And while you watch me do this watercolor, I wanted to talk a little bit about just what I learned throughout this whole process. It's actually kind of ironic. I am a patron of Jess Carp on Patreon, and she is doing these like weekly discussions, and one she had literally days before I did this video was all about perfection. And I found it hilarious over the fact that I had such a great idea. I thought the letters would look beautiful, which they would have. It just, in the execution, it didn't work out well. And in my comment on her discussion post, I literally talked about that. It was, as artists, sometimes it's difficult because we have an idea in our head that we think is going to be great. And then as we're working on it, it just doesn't come to fruition exactly how we expect. And that can be extremely discouraging sometimes. And I feel, and I know, that sometimes artists, when they're working on a project, when they hit that wall where it's not turning out the way they want to, they stop or they give up. And they think, oh, I just can't do this style, or I can't do this medium. Instead of going, no, you can, just push through. Part of what's fun about art is the experimentation and making something beautiful, even if it's not so beautiful at first. And in my discussion comment, I mentioned how one of my favorite things is to take old acrylic paintings that I have that I look back on now and I don't like at all, But what's great about acrylic is you can paint over it really easily. And it's fun being able to take a painting that you are not proud of or that didn't turn out the way you had hoped and to repaint it and it turn out to be a painting that you love. And while other people would look at it and all they see is a beautiful piece, you know what's underneath. And it kind of leads into that fun aspect of when we meet people, when we see people and they look like they have their life all together, sometimes they don't. There's always that other side to people that we don't always know, and people are so much more than just surface layer of the paint. And so this process, this whole video, gave me a great opportunity to really put my words to work and to practice that aspect of going, something I really hoped would work didn't, and I kind of had to scrap the idea completely and try something new. And I was scared, I'm gonna be completely honest. I thought I had completely ruined my new sketchbook, and I like showing people my sketchbooks, and I don't know, I had this moment where I was going, what does it say about my work if the front of the sketchbook is all torn up? And so just working through this process, I was trying to remind myself, don't overcomplicate it. Take it one brush stroke at a time. Just try to make this look how you want it to look, and as realistic as possible, still getting that same vibe as the original painting that you see in the left. And just the soft tones, very warm, reminds me of a summer day, and wanted to really focus on that. And so my encouragement to all of you is, don't get discouraged when you're working on an art piece and it doesn't initially turn out the way you expected. When I was younger, and honestly even still to this day, I have a hard time because I'll see other artists' work and I think, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful, I want to try and replicate it, or I want to try doing that same style or something, and it doesn't turn out anywhere close to their work, and it not the level or anything. And when I was younger, that was really hard, because then it made me think, oh, am I not meant to be an artist? Am I not good enough to be an artist? And I had to really push through that and go, your work is your work. Your style is your own style, and everybody has their own likes and dislikes. And you can have multiple styles or multiple pieces of work, some that for you are very appealing to your own eye and others that aren't, but someone might look at that piece that you don't find as beautiful and they may think it's gorgeous. So every piece has value, and that's why it's so important to take more pride in the process rather than the product or the outcome, and getting lost in the journey rather than the fear of failure. As I'm finishing up this piece, I wanted to really focus on my appreciation for pushing through and how grateful I was that I didn't give up. As you can see here, I'm just taking off the tape, and then I'll compare the original with the end. And then I finished up by taking my sketchbook and I just hot glued the piece to the front of the sketchbook. I was done dealing with super glue. So you're about to see the big reveal, and I hope this all is an encouragement to all of you to never give up. And when something doesn't turn out the way you like, just continue and push through until you're happy with it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.